And I get that inside light off. Bum bum.
Fabien Frode, FaceTime video.
Hello. Hey, calling on FaceTime. Okay, are you out and about? Are you out and about?
Because you prefer Zoom?
Yeah, let's do Zoom, even if it's brief. I'll see you there, yeah? Hong Kong. This is okay. Talking, talking, talking. Talking, talking, talking. Talking, talking, talking. Talking, talking, talking. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, hello. Right. Yeah. So thank you. By the way,
The sound is very muffled to the point I can't understand. I know you're talking, but
is this better?
yes, it's much better.
Okay, that's very interesting. I tried to. I'm using the microphone thing, and I had it on the inside of the shirt with the mic up, but it still didn't work. So now I know that. So that's useful. Right. Yeah. So thank you. I have obviously my pre-meeting with Dini today, and then we have your presentation. I guess we won't do much in the demo slot today, which is fine, of course. So this question of PDF versus JSON and all of that has been incredibly fruitful once I really started writing and thinking about it. So the question comes down to PDF is fine. We can import and export, so it's not really an issue. But what is an issue is you wrote a piece in our book about documents, which I strongly agree with. Let's use real documents. It's in here.
The real thing.
Yeah, you see, you smile more when it's digital. You know, it's weird, right? I mean, when it's not digital, we're all digital people, and then suddenly, boom. By the way, reading this, kind of interesting. There's a thing in here, I can't even find it now, but on how, and it's very relevant for our conversation, how brains through different creatures, it's a matter of the efficiency of sending information around. So of course, as a society, we need that, which is of course why both metadata, data, and document formats are crucial. So that's why I wanted to have a brief chat with you before talking to Dini today, so that when we get on Wednesday, we'll be more productive rather than start from scratch. So here's the question. Are we going to have one file or more? What I mean is currently in author, of course, there are many JSONs. There's all kinds of different components. That just happens to be author at the moment. In some cases, all I need to do is send the map, and that's easy. That works now. But from your perspective, someone puts in the headset. What does the operating system use day to day? It's Linux, right?
Yes.
Right. If from your perspective, let's say you are now going to build an app for yourself on Linux that is a bit like Author in terms of it can do some writing, mapping, and blah, blah, right? What is the actual saved state document you would want to use?
JSON.
Yes, but there are, so you want everything in a single JSON.
So to clarify, that's already, so I haven't done, did I actually do? But let's imagine I haven't done an author software. I did, but let's forget this. To take an example, I have a filtering server so that when I go, let's say, on Reddit, I allow myself 5 visits of Reddit per day during working hours. And the format I use for both the configuration, namely, for example, Reddit 5 times a day, email 20 times a day, whatever. So the configuration basically is in JSON, but the usage data, so like how many times do I even attempt to connect to it, and storing like the history of visits, all that is done in JSON. But so it means indeed, to answer your question, for me it's JSON, like no doubt. But that mostly comes from me being a JavaScript developer. Like for Python, usually people use Pickle. It's a Python format. It's basically native Python data structure. So
what do you mean by Python?
Pickle and Python, the programming language Python.
Okay.
But the point is, most programming language, they have the native data structure that you can save in a file format like JSON or pickle or a bunch of those. The main thing they have is they were very safe. Like you cannot really break a file that's been done this way because people read and write with this programming language in their native format all the time. So it's very safe and it's very easy. So that's the main thing. What I'm trying to say is I say JSON because it's true, but I have not a bias, but I have the background is I'm programming JavaScript. If you were to talk to somebody using another programming language, they might give you another answer.
I don't worry about that because I don't think that matters as much because as long as it's in a clear and robust form, who cares? It can always be translated later. So I have no problems with JSON, but if you look at the image I just sent you,
Yeah.
there's a lot of JSONs inside. This is one author document, a .liquid document. So we also have other things. That the plist is a very Unix, I believe. No, not Unix. Next Step and Mac thing. And then there's a lot of them. Well, there's RTFT, which is fine. But so are we saying that we want to have maybe in here, if I'm going to be a contributor, so to speak, called everything.json, which is a list of what the files are, maybe?
We can. So JSON can have more complex structure. It can have objects, which can be pretty much anything. Can be graphs. You can have arrays or lists, as you're saying. You can have like a list within it, graph or objects. So it's honestly, I don't want to say, oh, it covers everything, but it's I'm not really worried about how rich it can be, especially after the test I've done where you can put JSON in JSON or binary data in JSON. So how it will be named, will it be, for example, some of the thing I've done for the symposium demo have JSON file that I called, I guess, .canvas.json. I don't remember, but we can choose the extension. Can be JSON, can be something more specific. Can be slow in future of text, can be .json, slow in future of text, or the other way around. The way I did it for the symposium demo, I'm just saying it's good. It's just I can use it as an example because it did work to some extent. So it's because I used the extension as a convention. So for example, it was .live.json. I know I had to reload, it was JSON obviously, but I know I had to reload that file without caching. When it was .canvas.json, then I knew, or was assumed quite safely, that it was a JSON file, of course, but that the content of it was the canvas, like the 3D display of elements relative to each other. So it's up to us. It's honestly, I'm not stressed by this, so I'm not too adamant about it, in the sense that I don't feel like it's too committing decision, because if we mess up and we say .potato.json now in January, and we discover in February that, I don't know, it doesn't support non-Euclidean geometry, for example, then we call it .tomato.json in February or in March. And as long as we document it, if somebody wants to collaborate on this, like, oh, I used the .potato.json or .tomato regarding on my use case, and that's it. And I would argue regarding Sloan and the work that that's also an interesting research answer. So I'm not tense by this. Like, even if we do mess up and we take the non-optimal decision, that will be fine.
I agree on all points, especially the last bit. So on the site, that developer Mozilla that you sent, it says, talks about JSON being a string and an object, right? Converted to a native JavaScript object when you want to access the data.
Yeah.
So the saved file, would you use the string version or the object version?
So the string is how it's saved on disk, basically. When you load it up, so the first thing you do in JavaScript when you open the JSON is you convert that string to an object. So instead of being like a series of letters or characters, it becomes, for example, a position in space or whatever, and then you use them. But it's always stored on disk, or because a lot of times JSON is used to send files over the internet. So if I send you data, or if you save data on the server, for example, after you did a session on the Symposium demo, it will be sent across the wire, and that will be sent as a string. And then it unfolds as an object. Same when you save, what you usually, that's the S in JSON, that's the serializing part. It becomes a very long word, a string. So it's object. So it's JavaScript serialized object notation. So the serializing part is everything becomes linear, so a string of characters. And then the object is whatever is stored in memory so that it can be used. So it's this back and forth. And the beauty, quote unquote, of this is this back and forth is safe.
Okay, right. So, okay, that's good. But so in a practical sense, me as a developer, and now you talk to me as a developer and as any generic developer. What just please see if I got it right, and then tell me what to do. Number one, let's say that these documents are, okay, hang on, it's getting complicated. We can have an extra dot, right? So we can have a discussion with Fabien.sloan.json could be,
Yes.
right, okay. So let's say that we call these .sloan.json, because that is our flavor. Is that a reasonable thing to do? Okay. So that inside my author package, along with all the local goodies, author should maintain a file name .sloan.json. So that is ready to upload at any time, or should it be different?
It's up to you.
Or would it be better to generate it on the fly?
To generate what on the file? The file name?
I close my document on my laptop, put on my headset. I want the same stuff now on my headset. What's the mechanism? Not the transmission, the data format. The headset should have a document name .sloan.json, right?
So typically, if you close the lid of the laptop, that data would have been sent to the server. So if, yes, I mean, you don't have a choice. That data is sent to the server. And that server, I mean, no, actually, you could, well, yes, it has to be sent to the server. Or you send it directly to the headset, but right now that doesn't seem very convenient. So I would say it's safe to the server. And that server, it can be the file itself, so the JSON file, or you can have like for example, if I look up there, the Zoom call, there is like the ID of the call, the password, all these kind of things. So that could also be this kind of data. Either it's a file, usually when it's very large, or it's it's just the URL parameters. Here, I would assume it's a JSON file because as we start to manipulate more stuff around, it's more permanent, more arguable.
So what I'll talk to Dini about is we need to, based on what you've already done, develop a sloan.json or aps.json, whatever we call it. Document that on our website really clearly.
So wait, because again, I'm not arguing for what I've done because of the quality of it, but if I go back on my prototype folder on the future of text loan companion, so I would suggest at least you to hear me out about the JSON files I've already done, because they exist. They were not theoretical. Again, they were definitely limited. They can't do everything, but I have like the .layout.json, and I'll put like an example in the chat. It looks like this. So I would argue, not from an egocentric perspective, but that the .layout.json exists today, works today, and until proven otherwise that it's lacking something or there is something superior, which I have no doubt will exist. But until it does, let's at least try this one or stick to it. And we don't even need to change like the file format. I think if I ask somebody who is not in the project, like they receive a .layout.json, we can do the test if you want actually. We can send to someone who joins the group one Monday, who is not so aware of all those things, a developer. And if we send them that file, like as is, with that content, and sorry, but so this one is called default.layout.json, that could be again or test. So today we were the 13th January 2025 actually, that we have the JSON. So if we send that person this without any documentation, would they understand and be able to use it? Would they feel that it's not complete enough? But I don't want, sorry to be so long, but I don't want to do something that seems to start from scratch when there is something rather that already exists.
Okay, so, I completely agree. I agree with the notion of starting with something we've tried, and we can always break it and learn in the future. I completely agree. What I think we should do today is, I'll talk to Dini, of course, first, but could you be ready to do a 5-minute review of this? Because we do have some time before main presentations.
You mean today?
Yeah.
So I can do it, of course, but aren't you worried that people would be sidetracked or confused because they come for something on non-Euclidean geometry? What? Okay, if you want to do this, I would suggest, let's say halfway through the discussion, or if there is any kind of silence or whatnot, then you pop out that question, namely like, Fabien, I remember that during the symposium or you presented before, like the layout.json file, would that support non-Euclidean geometry? And then I have an excuse on topic to explain how it actually might not, or how it might. I don't even know, to be honest with you. But I worried that people who are not as involved in it as we are, when we go from one topic to the other, they're actually just confused.
Well, yeah, I hear you. The thing is, we do have 15 minutes of demo time ahead of presentations. That's the structure that Dini wanted, but I am wondering if that's actually useful on themed or presentation days. But we'll do it.
Chat with her today, and you two decide on this. My only worry is that people like, wait, am I in the wrong meeting? Is it Wednesday, or that, especially people who are not again as into it as we are. But whatever you two decide, I'll go with it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and I think the thing is, when Dini said it's got to be PDF, it's just, hang on, where? It really threw me off kilter because I know she doesn't mean that. I know that she
I'm
must.
very confused with this because I heard you the whole entire year and the year before this about PDF. So I'm honestly here. I don't know what's happening.
No, it's very simple. When it comes to exporting at the end of it, I want to export, I want to be able to take it into Author or similar, export it as a PDF, and in the visual meta at the end, you have the entire JSON. Right? But
when
that's.
you say I want to export it to or read it in Author, you mean like a 3D space in
No, no,
Author?
no. What I mean is in order to have XR first, which is Deanie's phrase that I so strongly agree with, and I know you do too, well, I think you do,
Yes,
we
I do.
cannot base the constraints of PDF as being the be all and end all. It just doesn't make any sense at all, right? So we need to have a thing, a format where we can do proper spatialized stuff. By the way, please click on the link I sent right before you did. You don't need to read it, but go all the way down to the bottom. There's an image of me working yesterday that Emily took. In order to build something like that, it needs to be stored in a richer data format. There's no question about that. So the authoring for year 2 has to have, okay, so in my language, the difference between a manuscript and a published document, manuscript is like Microsoft Word. It's what you write yourself. It's what used to be written by hand. It is what you keep editing. It's all loose. A published work is frozen so people can trust it and refer to it. So while you're in manuscript, you need to be able to have a JSON type thing. When you're done, you should be able to export it just like the JSON so people can make as many changes as you, or as a JSON with certain limitations so they can change the views but not the data, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, as a PDF for archival purposes.
Yes.
And
I
doing
think
this,
all three of us agree on this. But it's the distinction, for example, between published and still manuscript or intermediary format versus something that is sent for somebody who is never ever going to make a change to it. So I think again it's a case of and I would argue then having not a schema but a sketch on like the different steps. Step 1 would be, I don't know, organizing my directory with the different files, my research data with CSV for whatever data I collected out there in the field, maybe PDF of other document from other researchers. But yeah, and having those different steps and say at the end, or quote unquote at the end, there will be a PDF that will be sent to whatever ACM. There might be also in HTML, there might be a JSON sent for myself, but I think this is complex enough, this process, that I think having it visually and then under which, let's say, the different file formats and why or what not, what they're relevant would help. Because I think we're arguing for the same thing, all of us.
yeah, no, I think all three of us completely agree. It's just, I know that, I mean, part of the problem with you is you know too much, right? So there's things that I haven't caught up with. So that's why it's really useful to have these conversations. So what I'll talk to Deanie about today is to say that, yes, of course, PDF will be readable to an extent as a flat thing floating in space, absolutely, as we already have. Also, at the end of the day, you can archive into PDF, but in order to have a rich experience, it needs to be stored in a fluid manuscript type rich data format, such as JSON. And
Right.
I know what she's going to say. She's going to say, of course, you know, with her enthusiasm. So the question then is, what does that JSON mean? What should be in it? How should it behave? And also, how will external systems use it?
This one, the one in the chat.
What's that?
The one in the chat, the layout.json file.
Yeah, no, exactly. Oh, is that what you're calling it currently?
Yes.
Okay, I have some questions about naming because I think it's important. So layout is what you currently use, but just for fun, let your mind go. Just how about these other alternatives? One being Sloan, but they're only funding us for a year. It would be nice. But honestly, I would actually like liquid.json or xr.json. xr.json may be really clear for other people.
Let's ask somebody else, because you say I know too much. First, it's not true, but then if I do, you do too. And then we need to ask somebody who would be potentially interested in the project, potentially either a developer or researcher, and ask them Like, does any of those make sense? What do you believe they mean? Because honestly, Sloan, no. I said this a bit provocatively earlier, as a, let's say, a wink or a joke, but I don't think, again, if we take a developer or a user, it doesn't help them to get it. If they go on their hard disk or receive an email, they're like, what is this? Liquid, I get it from your perspective. I think somebody who is not using author and reader, I don't think it helps them much.
Oh, it's not from that. That's arbitrary. It's just my entire philosophy is based around the notion of liquid
I know, but
information.
again, people who are not,
I
people
know,
who
I
are
know.
using those, they understand your philosophy or at least part of it, and people who don't, I don't think it helps them.
Oh, I agree. By the way, there is such a thing as XR JSON. It's used in the Meta system.
Yeah, then probably not. Indeed, it's good to check if it doesn't collide with, and maybe .layer.json already exists. Huh? I did not even bother to check. It's just like what was the simplest to me at that time. To be also blunt, it's something. It's not something that I don't care, because as you hear, I'm still arguing for or against different options. It's also, though, not something that I want to spend too much time in, because to look back
How
to
about we just do, for now, ftl.json?
okay, do the test. Take somebody in the street and ask them, like, if
Nothing's
you
going to make sense to anybody.
right? But I think one makes a tiny bit more sense. I think layout, people understand that it's how people are organized in space. They might think 2D at first, but at least there is some information there that they could rely on. But again, yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, because it's not something where I can help most. If somebody talks about, let's say, communication or documentation, they will have a more informed opinion than I do.
Well, okay, I would be happy with a compromise of spatial.json.
Sure, I prefer than the previous options.
You're so political sometimes, or polite. I don't know, one of those.
Trying to.
I mean, yeah, spatial kind of says it's another way of saying XR, and XR is taken. Yeah, that looks nice, doesn't it?
Sure, that works.
Anyway, let me just write that down to discuss with Dini. Today is the 13th. Right, okay, written that down to discuss with her. Right, okay, I'm happy. Anything else from your side?
No, still preparing a bit for this afternoon, the discussion. And I saw the message actually on that, the suggestion of presenting to Happytext in Chicago that Lee sent yesterday, I guess.
Yeah. Someone else actually suggested too that we do a workshop, full workshop.
Yeah, well, I did not reply to it, but sure, yes, happy to do that. Let's first hear this afternoon or today if it makes sense. But maybe there is like some stuff that already exists we are not even aware of, and that solves or answers all those questions. Yeah, I'm before even thinking about committing anything more to this. I want to hear what people say, and eventually maybe I'm like, wow, this is actually the most exciting path, or yeah, actually, well, tempting, well, trying it, yeah, just it's a beautiful idea, but it's not realistic, or it's or we don't have the skills for it. I don't even know, but yeah, I will not say anything until we actually discuss together.
Are you talking about specifically the non-Euclidean?
Yes.
Okay. So, okay, so you're very excited about that.
I think it's important. I think there is potential.
Okay, so a question of Dini is part of the organizing committee, we found out, for hypertext in Chicago.
Yeah, yeah,
We don't really have a budget for you and me to fly over.
I know.
If you feel it's important, I'm extremely willing to back that up and to budgetize for us to do that. If we do a workshop, we can definitely do non-Euclidean as the key thing, but also a little bit of our general thing, as in what is working in XR with text and that kind of stuff. You know, reading books and looking at the state of the world at the moment, like you, I am also very worried. And I had a conversation with Bob Stein yesterday where he showed the Tapestry project again. This is on our blog now, by the way.
Mhm.
And he is not an AI skeptic in the short term, but he does think it'll be the end of the human race, which is kind of hilarious. So he's
Okay.
also trying to integrate it into a positive workflow.
Mhm.
So if we now this week manage to nail down our document stuff, if we then in the short period, and that means mostly you, build a, here's the thing on the wall, I move it over here in a way that is not just your demo, but I can use it too, for instance,
Mhm.
then I absolutely think we should spend time on, I really don't like the term non-Euclidean because it ties it to that, but to completely innovative, flexible, mind warping, and sometimes useful views.
Let's do that. Let's see a bit how it unfolds this afternoon for us, but today for everybody. To be also upfront, again, I see it as potential, like non-Euclidean geometry. It's exciting or it's interesting, also because it's unexplored, but a bit like the article that I suggested that Dini put in the reference, the Nature short piece. Those people, so mathematicians mostly, they tried this in 2017, so 8 years ago, and they haven't worked a lot more on it. So they use it for mathematics, for research in math, not for like managing the library you have just behind you. So maybe for them it was interesting or even mind expanding, but they didn't dig deeper, or maybe they did and I missed it. But maybe for us it's actually amazing, but maybe it's not. So again, I'm like cautious on that aspect. I'm rather convinced that at least some of it would be interesting, but maybe not. So
Yeah, no, I'm also sold in a similar way. You can see my screen, right?
yes.
So really briefly, you know, in Author, I have this Spark AI thing, right?
Mhm.
So I've been wondering, how can I help people read without it just doing a summary? So I developed this one called AI Overview. And there's two reasons I'm showing it now to you. One is it can have many components. So like in the web page blog I showed you that you looked at earlier, there are bits of text in the space. So this, okay, it's sometimes the formatting goes off a bit, but here it's just keywords to help people generally understand what this document is about, right? Because we can do keywords, or we can extract people, we can do timeline, all these things that you know about really well. I think that in the beginning of our environment, these should be spatialized. However, they shouldn't be spatialized in one dimension only, like little posters coming up. It can be much more exciting if these are presented in more visual ways, that depending on how you move and how you interact with them, it goes in different things. Completely agree with that. Just one little thing here is, let's say you're reading this and you have a biology background. So you know about the human brain and physiology, but you don't know about technology. It will give you a different reply, right? And I think this is going to be really important over time. to allow the extraction of things you want to learn to be different depending on who you are, right?
Sure.
Often they're similar. Hang on, I'm just trying to close that and go back. So, I mean, Mark talks about view spec a lot. So non-Euclidean view specs will clearly be amazing. A final thing, because we both got to go. I got Jim at 9. When it comes to authoring in XR, some of it people will have to be able to type in XR. We'll do some basics, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I guess most of it will be composition, moving things in, right?
Yes.
How does the JSON fit with that? Because you will have things from different JSON original things, and then you put it into, it'll be almost like a normal document. Like you put it in and now suddenly it's copied across kind of thing, right?
So right now, again, the layout.json that's in the chat, it's as long as you have objects in space, being a document, being whatever source, an image or something even that you sketch or draw, whatever, then you save its position and orientation or rotation. Whatever the source is, hence the discussion on provenance, by the way, recently. Okay. Sorry, let me turn off the notifications.
Oh, don't worry.
Notifications, don't disturb. Sorry. So yes, so you can move things in space and then you save their position and rotation. Currently not manage.
I mean, okay, I know this is kind of going on topic for what you're doing later, but let me just ask you a question. If we have a component-based system in the sense that you have a kind of a room, but you can bring in different things to show. We could, for instance, have a timeline rectangle, right? So whatever you're currently working on, automatically the timeline will be populated, like we just looked at. But that could be a really interesting example of the non-Euclidean thing, where the objects in the room that are for display and interactive purposes are non-Euclidean. So depending on how you move the timeline, you get a very different effect. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a room that's non-Euclidean. It could be pieces in it as well, right?
Yes, something we're going to touch on this afternoon, namely that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And actually, most of games today, they use portals, which leads to partially non-Euclidean. It's very rare that it's fully non-Euclidean because it's just not natural for everybody. Even for mathematicians, it's kind of weird. It's probably going to be one of the arguments, let's say, for this afternoon to say a compromise. It's a bit like something people can relate more. It's having physics where if I'm in this physical space here and I take something and I toss it, it's going to fall. But if I were to step through the window and toss it, maybe it would stay in the air, which would fall much slower. Maybe it would be flipped. But because we're different spaces, in real life we can't do this. We can, but it's like so imaginably expensive in terms of resources. We don't ever do this. But here in the virtual, we can. And indeed, it might be like when I'm in my small 2x2, it is Euclidean. But when I go out there, and for example, I have a bookshelf like yours, but I want it like 10 times bigger. And then the way I grab, when I go further, then it's going to be smaller objects so that I can grab more. So yeah, having some changes in the space, not the whole thing. Yeah.
So in terms of the storage, first of all, there is a JSON for the room, the layout of the entire room, or not?
Yes, the layout of the entire room. Well,
Right.
kind of.
Okay,
Just
kind of is good.
to-
Kind of is good enough for now. But okay, so here's the thing. Into this room, I have developed in specialist software a non-Euclidean bookshelf, an object that does weird stuff. That could be encoded in JSON and put into that room, right?
You said weird stuff.
It's just a bookshelf. Looks like a bookshelf, but depending on how you put things in.
Yes. Well, yeah, so actually that's two different things. The way the room behaves, here it's not stored on the JSON because they were just like where are objects. But the behavior of the room would be different. So for example, if I send you the layout.json file and you work in Euclidean space and I don't, then you would have a different behavior. You would have the book would still be positioned at the same position, but for them, for example, for you, you would just grab them and pick them one to one as you normally would. So it's not included in the file at the moment, at least.
No, but it could be, right?
It could be, sure.
Right. So you could have a file that is Peter's brain as an LLM.ftl.json. You could have non-Euclidean bookclays.ftl.json. You could have Fabien's workroom.ftl.json, for instance, right?
Yes.
Because one of the things that's exciting about what you presented before is a layout is an independent thing from what it is laying out. So once this is loaded into our environment, we have to decide what it is. Maybe we call this FTL authoring, whatever. We need a product name so we can refer to it. But okay, well, that's good.
Sorry to interrupt, but and especially
Oh, I'm done. You're not interrupting. I apologize.
No product. No product. There is no product.
There has to be a product.
No.
No, a product in the sense that, sorry, my gym is running a minute late, which is perfect. No, but
I'm not putting anything on the store or at the supermarket.
No, that's not what I mean.
I'm with this, but product like things that goes in a box and then we send it to people. At least I'm not doing that.
No, I don't mean it like that. What I mean is, in a year when this is finished, and we tell our friends because we made it possible to move information in and out, they can use it. That's what I mean by product. They have to have somewhere to go, something to do to access it. Call it a service, call it a system. That's fine.
But again, sorry, but I'm not doing that. I hope so. It would be really, really cool. But at least in the context of the Sloan work, I'm not doing anything that will be, if the friends, they are not ready to go through crazy hoops, for example, coming to the symposium or like install weird shit on their computer or their phone and they expect like something, they go to the store. Again, I honestly wish. But the amount of work between like something that is kind of weirdly that works once on your thing after I help you to do it versus something that random stranger from the street, they put their headset that they tried once and boom, they can manage document. It's years and years of work, which to me are not even interesting. So that's why I'm very I'm adamant about this part that if you can do that, please do it.
Oh, Fabien, I understand that you're a prototypist. I understand that our work is research, no question. But I still need to be able to have a sentence as a product, right? Not as here, give me $5 and here it is. That's not what I mean. What I mean is the thing, right? I don't want it to be just like last year, the naming went all over the place. But at the end of next year, what I would like is on our website or a new website, click on this. You may have to install local stuff. That's irrelevant in a sense. And then you can start doing these things, right? It's still going to be written up as a prototype, still going to be written up as an experiment to experience, absolutely, unless we get extra money and extra coding for someone else to productize it, which, if you want, could be fun. But either way, we need to refer to it as being somewhere accessible and with some name. So it will be a thing on a web page, right, initially.
Right, but the difference between a thing, a prototype, and a product, it's millions of dollars or euros or pounds and years and years of work, which again, I don't find interesting. I have no problem if other builds on this and make something that is an actual product. But I can tell you, like, it's just I don't want to do this just to be annoying. It's just like the expectations. If you hope that in January next year there will be newly a product, I'm sorry, but I'm afraid you'll be
No,
quite
Fabien, that's not what I mean. This may be a language thing between us. It's absolutely not what I mean. But what I do mean, I do not want to get out of this and have it as locked away in a research paper for the ACM or our book only. Like the demo videos you sent us of the non-Euclidean, we cannot put that on our heads. Our stuff needs to be, if someone does the required work, they can put it on their heads. That's all I'm saying. So that's what I mean by product, the end product. The end product is the research findings, the record of use, and here is a usable form as far as we could make it. Good luck.
Yes. And also to be clear, my suggestion or my plan to meet like one different researcher a month is also that to make sure it's not something, as you say, like locked in a paper, or that is something that regardless of the quality or the finding of the work, that nobody on earth except like three random people that are so niche into the thing can use. It has to be still accessible to the largest amount of people as possible. So this part I have no problem with. And that's the hope, at least. And I think by doing it again and again with more people and not audience, but people who are willing to put a bit of effort to try, and that will include you, we'll get to a point where hopefully, but it's going to be proportional to the amount of resource, namely time we invest in it to make people try, which has not really been done last year.
So it's not unlikely that I'll be seeing Alan Kay quite soon to put the headset on his head. He wants to see the Apple Vision Pro. Of course, that doesn't do pass-through, so you may have to do the other one as well. So when you're talking about doing different experiences, I completely agree. We're on the utterly same page as this. The point is, with the work we did last year, people can go on the website, click through, and there is a stored version, and you could experience it. That is what I'm talking about for this year as well. Right. What I'm talking about slightly differently is me as a developer, I need to be able to put stuff up and get stuff back. That's why the file is important. It shouldn't just be a database, which of course we agree on. One of the first things I would like to do, and I'll talk to Dini about it, is to be able to take the map view from author in and out of XR, in and out of what you're building. That would probably be very useful for us as a test case and to really document that on the web page. What do you think?
It would be useful, it would be feasible. Now, if I step back from, let's say, a researcher trying to author something in XR, I would need to understand a bit more how they would do that.
Certainly my gym coach is ready. Yeah, we'd have to have discussions on that, but we need to decide on, first of all, it's going to be really useful to, how can we impress Alan Kay? Because it would be nice to impress Alan Kay, wouldn't it?
Sure.
On something basic. And of course, if he gives some kind of a nice comment as a blessing or whatever, that would help us for future. All right, well, this is super nice. I look forward to seeing you in a couple hours. Amazing.
Sweat well.
I'm going to put this up. Might as well make this open for the community or not, this chat?
Sure, I don't mind.
It was a useful thing about things. Okay, all right, see you later, bye.
See you, take care.